everybody, and welcome back to the Spiritually Inspired Conversations series. I'm so happy to be back here with all of you after a little Mercury retrograde break. And today I have for all of you a very special treat in the form of my friend Vaughn. Over the past year, Vaughn has made this incredible transition from kind of a corporate, professional work life into becoming a professional psychic and intuitive, which has been, in my opinion, a very long-awaited destiny for her soul. So I'm so excited to interview her today in order to discuss sort of the life experiences that brought her here to this moment of finally becoming a professional intuitive and to learn a little bit more about doing this work. So welcome, Vaughn.
Thank you, Maya. I'm so thrilled to be here and talk to you about this.
And we are so happy to have you. So Vaughn, can you tell us a little bit about kind of where you are now, 1 year into beginning this spiritual work, and kind of a little bit about what it is that you are actually doing?
I'm going to use the time span of COVID. In 2019, I was taking a personal break from a fairly busy job, and COVID fell upon us. And in that time span, I decided I needed to meditate a little bit more. So let me just fast forward to a lot of meditation and work. About 3 months ago, I decided that I was ready to start doing intuitive psychic channeling. And I went to a local mystical shop here in my little town on the ocean and said, I think I can do this for you.
Vaughn, is that what you said?
My daughter pointed out it was a little bit weak. And she was with me and she looks at the lady and she says, Mom, you can do it. She goes, see this book? You do this too. At any rate, she said, well, come back in a week and we'll sit down and have a chat. And I translated chat into test. Mm-hmm. And I really wasn't sure. So anyway, I said, it's going to be what it's going to be. And I went back to meet with her that day, and she asked me 3 questions. The divine spirit fell into place, and I just had more information probably than she wanted. I said, I could work the cash register, which I don't know how to run a cash register. And she said, no, I think we're going to have you read. And then it just took off.
Oh my gosh. So you walked into this store and she asked you 3 psychic questions.
Yes.
Do you remember what the questions were?
She said, oh, I just interviewed somebody at the other store. She has a couple of stores. Can you tell me about this person? By then I realized I would not only know things, but spirit sometimes would like drop a, it's like a billboard size sign that I can't miss. Like I'd already been doing some readings on the phone. Okay. So I'd already been doing some readings from home. I just hadn't been sitting in front of a bunch of people other than family to read. But anyway, so I knew that this information was very poignant. So I could see the girl, I could feel her energy, I could see what she was excited about, I could see her fears, I kind of got her vibe, and I just explained it, and she said, wow, yeah, that's exactly her.
Yes.
And she said, would you hire her? I said, oh, absolutely. I said, but I will tell you that she will look to you, for you to be supportive of her, because I feel like there's little things that might get in the way here and there. But I said, there'll be easy remedies. And she was like, that's just exactly what I was thinking.
Oh, telepathy. And then she hired you on the spot?
No, and then we went to question number 2.
Oh.
So yeah, the second question, this was a good one. She said, what in this store could you see or feel where I could make changes? You don't like to confuse at any point anything that might be your own subjectivity, right? And I must say that after having worked, with a lot of people and employees and, that corporate thing, it does kind of kick in that sense to me. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I knew that there were people working in the store that were maybe a bit divisive, and not as supportive of her as she would like. And so I said it, and I said, but I think you've taken care of that. That occurred to me. And she said, indeed, I just did.
Ooh, your magical juju. Wow. Wow.
Then the last one and the best one for me, right? Here we are, the healthcare professional, was she said to me, when you look at me, is there any physical medical issues that you could interpret? So Maya, know that although I'd had some experience with it, I did not feel super confident. So I just kind of went for it. And I can see people's physicalness now like an X-ray. So if something is gone, it fades out, right?
Yes.
And if it's acute, then it's, like an X-ray, it's very white or very pronounced or very dark. So she was sitting down. So I had to read her through the table. She's not very tall. I'm like, boy, this kind of cuts off.
Hey, you can't hate on us small people.
I didn't have a whole lot of, physical body to see.
Oh my goodness.
Unlike me, right? But anyway, so I just went for it. I just kind of did a scan. And I said, well, on your left side, my right, mid-abdomen, I see that you have had an issue and apparently something removed. And she said, she goes, well, as a matter of fact, I had my left ovary removed. And I'm like, bingo. So then she said, what else? And this is a silly little thing, but again, she was like, absolutely. Her feet were hurting her. She had a lot of pain in her feet.
Yeah.
And she said, oh, you're so right. She says, my feet have been killing me. I've been standing too much and blah, blah, like that. So that was it. That's when I got hired. And then I worked for a couple of weeks, and then she let me do one of her psychic fairs with a couple of her like super serious, readers.
We love the super serious psychics. Oh my goodness. Well, Vaughn, so for somebody listening, they just listened to this kind of like, in many ways, sort of first professional test reading. And you described a panoply of different abilities, right? Like we're talking about seeing visions, we're talking about just knowing, sensing energies in the physical body, maybe a little bit of mind reading, all this kind of stuff. And so this leaves us all kind of wondering like, whoa, how did you get, how'd you get to like where you are today? Like what in your life experience led you to this moment in the car with your daughter where you felt sort of confident enough walking into a mystical shop and saying, you know what, I think I can work for you?
I'm always a little bit envious of the people that say, when I was 4 years old, 10 spirits walked into my bedroom and I knew I had it and I used to chat with them. Well, I didn't get that, but I had an immense upbringing when I was very young of using my imagination and being open to the realm of possibilities and know a creative life. Let's put it that way. I went into nursing and I knew when I was doing it that I could just sense more or feel more. And the feeling more did not always feel like a gift, right? I can remember people making wisecracks when I'd just be demolished by somebody's health or their death. That was one thing. And then I was completely drawn to studying people, religions, their understanding. I had an immense curiosity about people and collectively about people. So I spent a lot of time with that. Before I was 20, I was interested in meditation. And although I couldn't always do it, many times I could. When I got a little bit older, I started doing therapeutic touch and Reiki and energy work. And, I moved to Boulder, Colorado. But I will tell you that all along the way, over and over, there would be some kind of a profound experience that I couldn't really explain that told me I was onto or into something. And when I had children, I had real mystical experiences, some of them pretty scary and some of them not, but yet they made a big impact on me. So I just years and years of a lot of that and study, like I've said before, and always staying in pursuit of it. And when I became an administrator, I realized I knew things about, the board members sitting across the room that everybody didn't know. I mean, I got so that and so that was having the ability to do that was, people either loved me for it or hated me for it. So I had to be very careful.
So did you feel throughout this whole time, you talk about being drawn to therapeutic touch and Reiki and meditation, what was that like for you? Like, did you feel like you were sort of being like pulled or magnetized to these healing arts, to this spirituality? Like, how did you find your way?
I would meet people that were interested in it. Everywhere you go, you'd meet someone. So I found a nurse practitioner, another nurse, and, a psychologist. And then, we'd all get together and we realized that we could sit like in a group circle and be able to see or read other things. If I had to put a word on it, I was drawn to that energy. It's, it's exciting to be able to tap into it, and it's fun to do it with friends and all of that. But I knew there was something in that energy that I needed to know more about. You ever heard of Yogananda? Paramahansa Yogananda. So that's an example of reading about somebody and understanding how it works. I actually went to one of his spiritual temples in California because I was out there on a conference, and I sat with a nun and one of the monks. In sitting with them, they're both like 90 years old, that energy was so pronounced that it made like a shift in my life. So I was fortunate that over and over again, these little opportunities of experience would come. Now, meanwhile, I'm raising a family, I'm working, I have a husband, friends, house, all those things that kind of, I hate to say it, but more or less drag you in the other direction, right? It's one thing to have the faith and all of that. And yes, you use it, but I was never really able to be completely open to it.
It sounds like there was this much deeper sense of curiosity and interest in other people that sort of compelled you forward. And I love that. I love that it came to you through other people. Some people's pathway, it's like, it's through dreams or nature or symbols or all these different things. But it's like spirit sent into your life certain people who sparked this curiosity within you, it sounds like. And then the curiosity itself wouldn't allow you to quit in your search. Yes. I also listen to a lot of accounts of spiritual people. I'm always kind of like a little bit envious of those people that are like, well, I'm a 17th generation psychic or astrologer. My mother's 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 mother was like world renowned or whatever in these arts. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what would that be like, to be born into it? But another thing that you hear all the time is like when people are talking about their life experiences, like different spiritual practitioners will be like, and then I woke this one day and God, source, the universe, the gods, like they
Yeah.
knocked me over the head and I knew it was time to begin this work. Did you experience that, Vaughn? Did you have a moment where God, source, the universe knocked you on the head? And like, how did you know? Like, how did you know, okay, now I want to actually do this as my work?
I would meet my friend Nancy, who was a Jungian therapist.
Uh-huh.
And she would say to me, your dreams are really special. Of course, I said, well, I bet everybody has special dreams. With support of many of these people that were brought into my life, it kept me going. So the moment, yes, I had a moment, Maya, sometime during COVID when I decided that I would sit and live in stillness day after day until I got it. I would be sitting in meditation, and then all of a sudden, I would feel this complete and utter joy. Sometimes even thinking about it, makes you feel tearful. So the joy would come. I spent months crying. I would journal. I got so I could like channel. I wrote journals full of poetry that, believe me, I am no poet. So much was happening. And I think now looking back, like I don't do that all the time now, although it's a lovely spot to live in. Spirit really, really was and is there. And then I realized I had angels and guides. They came to me. It was a lot, and it was months. It took months. It really completely changed my life.
Yeah. And so it sounds like from the stillness, like this, almost like this stillness was speaking to you. From that stillness, you began to actually arrive upon that understanding, which you'd probably been seeking in some ways out in the world. And then you found it in the stillness during COVID.
Yeah, there was no big jobs. I was here alone. Everything was quiet because COVID had shut everything down. So yes, it's true. Most of my external stimuli no longer existed. So it was quite a simple life. I spent a lot of time outside, and, it got more exciting because as I would go outside, I would be able to, is converse a good word with spirit?
Converse, yes.
And so then I realized I could do that as well. That information and that spiritual connection is out there and available for everyone. And I felt so fortunate that I realized that my 3D world was not my only world.
You experienced this when you began to live more simply. I'm curious, do you think if life circumstances besides COVID, something else perhaps, had led you to this simple way of living earlier in your life, say, at age 30 or something like that, do you think you would have experienced sort of the volume of the spirit world increasing as you did?
I think not. There's a divine plan. Maybe I was ready. Maybe I think I said to you and to my friend Sandra, I go, why did I have to wait so long? Why do I have to be this old to have such, why have I waited all my life for the magnificence of this? And it just is, I had a career and children, and yes, I moved about, and this is the last place on earth that I could have seen this happening, but part of it was being in the stillness and my being ready. It's like, how different people speak to you and they can say the same words, but you hear it when you hear it.
Oh, most definitely. And,
Right.
Vaughn, as I listen to you, I think it's so important to keep aware that there were people who needed you to be in that more material state of consciousness. You know, there were so many people who needed you to be the nurse and be able to sense them in a particularly special way, or, you know, have empathy for them. And so it's so wonderful that you were able to serve in that arena, because we need, you know, healers, intuitives, light workers and stuff to be in the corporate world as well. Very, very much so.
Yes.
But it sounds like it was a matter really of a faded sense of timing. So it does seem like there is a divine timing for all things in life. And I'm glad that you arrived. Okay, there's something about feeling connected to the divine, certainly. And you're describing that and feeling and sensing spirit. But when did that become like, all right, I'm going to do a reading? Like, well, how did that happen?
Well, and as you know, that was a struggle for me, because I had a lot of doubts, because I had believed I'd been fairly proficient in my old career. I did not believe that I was as proficient, comparing myself to people such as yourself. Now, I was comparing, and that was a big mistake. And so I really kept hoping, you know, that I'd get some kind of a sign that I could do it. So Spirit was generous in that way too. You know, I did the thing that so many newbies do. I got cards and oracle decks and, you know, tuned up the pendulum. In using those tools, I hate to use this word, but it's the truth, rewarded over and over that yes, indeed. What I could say something and literally pick the card that used the exact same words. Like I got so I could listen to the radio and say the next sentence. I got so it just really became, I realized that I was tuned in. Initially, it was more of, what do they call it? The claircognizance, you know, that you
just understand.
Know. Yeah, you just know. So, you know, that's a hard thing to say to somebody who worked in psychiatry at UCLA years ago. I actually had been fortunate and had worked with a psychologist from Eastern Europe who would often remind us here in the United States that maybe we think we know everything about psychology, but indeed, God, Spirit may know more.
Could it be? Could it be?
Yeah, could it be? But what I'm saying is there was a challenge for me to let go of my knowing mind, my own body of reference and intellect, and just trust in Spirit. The next thing was I would get these big signs. And so then that just told me that I could trust in that.
Oh, that's so wonderful. And do you remember your first reading?
You know, this is embarrassing. I don't. It seems like I went from a first reading right to the psychic fair, like in a short span of time. So when I did my first reading, I had started out saying that their guides and angels, or whoever their source is, would connect with mine, and that I would bring them information that they're seeking for their highest good on this day. And that seemed to help me to realize, you know, to carve out that it was going to be for the highest good, that this energy would come to us, and that I would be able to give them answers. And Spirit made it abundantly clear that if we didn't know, we didn't know. And if there wasn't information to be had, then we wouldn't have it. Here's one that was one of the first ones, that this person had lived in another life, and they spent a lot of time on this really dusty old typewriter. I always had the feeling that it had something to do with communication, like around one of the big wars. And, you know, it would make me feel afraid, like that person felt afraid, weak, hungry.
I can feel it. Like, I feel it. I see it.
Right? Can't you feel it?
Yeah.
And Spirit's also been really great about showing me things like in a profound way. I couldn't dream this stuff up if I wanted to. And then I realized I could see into their future, past, present, future. It's all same timeline. By the time I got to the psychic fair, I could just rattle off information. And people are very anxious to speak to those who have passed. I am certainly not excellent at it, although I'm quite good at it when Spirit wants me to be.
Yeah, you said I'm very good when Spirit wants me to be. And I think that
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
much sums up the experience of like being a professional intuitive or psychic. It's like the gifts come when
Right.
they are needed, truly needed. And sometimes people will ask me like, oh, Maya Joy, I use I use these apps to try to practice my psychic abilities, or I'm trying to play this game and it's not working. But it seems like I have an intuition, but it's not working. And I always tell those people, because it's not needed. When you're sitting in front of a person who is at their breaking point or in desperate need of information that they cannot come to on their own volition, that is when Spirit provides the information. It's not about playing this or that game or these, it happens when it's needed. I think in my own experience, it's difficult. Sometimes the logical mind, you talked about learning to kind of let go of that. Sometimes the logical mind has it's really set on getting a particular type of information from Spirit. And I think there's a tremendous like wisdom in what you shared there about telling people if it's not there, it's not there. You have to surrender to the spirit world. That took me a long time to get comfortable with, but it sounds like you brought that on board kind of from the very beginning, which is really quite brilliant.
I had to work on it too, but Spirit can be pretty funny,
Yes.
And I tend to see or feel Spirit from my right side. Okay. So that's, if they're looming around the left, I'm like, what are you doing over there? But so sometimes when I'm doing a reading, Spirit will tell me to, give me some information, and I say it. And, I look at the person and they're not interested. And so then Spirit will say, say it again. I'm like, I can't keep saying that over and over. I go, you're making me look like a fool. So one day there was somebody who really needed this information, and they were full of doubt. And Spirit was not giving up. They were like, say it again. I said, oh my gosh. So I said it again. So finally I look at her, I go, listen, if you could just find some way to appreciate this message, they are not going to let up until I said, just nod. Do something. I said, because otherwise, this is how the reading's going to go. Now, we can change subjects, but you, however, keep bringing it back to this subject. And this is what they want you to know. Well, it kind of got them laughing. And once they got laughing, they were more receptive. And then it started to make sense. I'm sure you've had that happen. Like you leave a subject, you go on to another one, right? And in sharing that second topic, Spirit often brings it back to the initial one, because then you have found a pathway.
Oh, definitely. Yes. The guides, they always have their way. They have their way.
Exactly.
Yes, they have their way of getting the messages across. That's for sure. And tricking us. That's one thing I noticed at first when I started doing readings. It's like they have a way of conveying the message so that it almost transcends or sneaks in a back door that kind of goes around like the logical mind, but they'll get it there. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. That's what I said. I think that sometimes they're tricking me. I'm like, then if the person's still not biting, so to speak, they'll start sharing a lot more detail. And sooner or later, that allows that person who's having the reading to trust that maybe all of this really is based in evidence. So it's good that Spirit can do that.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And that they're willing. Yes. Thank you guys.
They're willing.
Oh, yes. That they're willing to give us what we need to trust. Oh, that is amazing. So Vaughn, kind of looking back, what would you say are some of your favorite aspects of doing this work?
Okay, let's just eliminate the group that comes that just wants to see what I can see.
So, yes. Okay. There goes 25%.
I have them just start talking about anything. And the second they start talking, I tune in. And the best part of it is helping people to know that there is that world of possibilities, that they know there is, that there's light at the end of the tunnel, right? And that there's something greater than themselves that not only sees them, but knows them and is there to support them. How can it get any better than that, and having somebody come in and spend a little bit of time and feel reinforced or supported, just knowing that they will get through it. And so that makes it fun, and I try to make it fun. So I guess that's the big things. And of course it's fun for us, especially when it really gets detailed.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, it does sound like you were born to do this work, Vaughn. And I agree with you. Helping people know that there's something greater than themselves. That's the same for me. It's just helping people learn to connect with that which is greater than themselves. If I know that a person walks away or they're going away and they now feel that connection themselves, like they can make that connection to something that's greater, then I know that that person is forever going to be okay. And those are just, that knowing just brings so much peace, and it gives so much meaning to the work.
Yeah, one of the things that you're super good at, Maya, is that because you are not only able to read like the 3D and what's happening, but you are also, with your ability to work with spirit, to identify real soul recognition things. I know you've done it for me, right? You have definitely been able to identify things within my soul that maybe I didn't really know myself. So those are the stepping stones that people need to hear and know, especially in times like these, right? When there's a threat, when the world feels like a threat, to know that your soul holds a flame that will take care of you.
Yes, and that you are beyond just this life in this moment. I think to really know and feel and experience. Yeah, that's my favorite, is when and it doesn't happen all the time, but when I'm blessed enough to be able to see someone's soul in various lives, and also their soul in the higher realms. Like when I see that during a reading, and I become so overwhelmed, because when you really see the journey, that you can honestly feel nothing but pride when you see what that soul has been through, and where and you see the expression of who they are today. I mean, it's just so amazing. Yes. Oh my goodness. Vaughn, it's been wonderful to hear about your experience in moving into becoming a professional psychic. And do you have any advice for someone who might be maybe like you were 10 years ago, and maybe they're in the corporate world or the healthcare world, or they're in the 3D world, and they sense that they have abilities, and maybe they're curious about beginning to do this work in a more formal context? Do you have any advice for someone like that who might be listening today?
You have to find your own awareness of that which is more than yourself. So some people find it, running a 50-mile race. Some people find it swimming. Some people find it gardening. Some people find it meditating. Well, I think a lot of people spend a lot of time reading for friends, like years reading for friends. And if that's all they want to do, great. But if you're, I think, willing to do a little more of the work, like journaling and being a little bit more expansive on your own, and then you want to become a reader or a healer, it's the very thing people said to me: just get out there and do it, and trust that spirit will be there for you. Find people that are very much at the top of their game, that they are people that you can relate to, and spend time talking to them. I try to, help those that I meet that are interested it's a form of mentoring, right? It's a skill, it's a world, it's something that takes a village.
Oh, yes, it does. Yes, it does. It takes a village. Yeah. Vaughn, you talked so much about relationships in the interview today. And what I kind of heard you saying there when you were kind of distilling down advice for people who want to use their gifts, it really was about kind of building that personal relationship with spirit through journaling or through meditating or whatever gets you in touch with that joy And I always
Mhm.
consider that, the relationship to my own guides and to spirit, it's up there amongst the very most important, if not the most important in my life. And I think that's kind of the difference between somebody who's like a medium or a psychic and the rest of, of everyone. It's like we consider, the realm of spirit or those spirit guides and loved ones who support us as being just as like real and tangible and just
Yeah.
right there as like the people that are in our physical lives. So yes.
Yeah. And another thing Maya's going to say is once I realized I had that whole group with me, and then actually daring to talk to them and listen. Once I decided it was a two-way street, it was really so much better.
Yeah, having to face those fears, related to our understanding of psychiatry, mental health, psychology, like you were talking about. I think, especially for someone who does have, a scientific or intellectual background, and I did too. I went to an engineering college, etc. There's that you have to cross that bridge of fear of being crazy, and
yes, I definitely felt crazy for a while. Like
I remember you were like, tell me I'm not going crazy. I was like, you're not, you're a medium. Like,
That's right.
But,
it was freakish. That's right. It would leave you believing that something had happened.
Mm-hmm. And now here you are. Okay, Vaughn. So let's say somebody's listening today and they would like to work with you. How can they get in touch with you?
Okay, so if somebody wanted to go to my website, it's more of a landing page, but nevertheless, the information's all there.
Okay, and we'll link that in just below the video in the description. Yeah, and what are the different ways that they would be able to work with you?
One, I do readings on there. Oh, I am starting to doing some counseling, meaning for those people developing a little bit on their own. So then I can do some shorter sessions. There's a place to email me for any other needs.
Okay, yeah, so people can reach you via email, check out your website, and it sounds like you've got readings and some counseling or spiritual development work going on right now. So yes, that's amazing. I hope some people who are sort of, really vibing with Vaughn today will get in contact and get to experience your very magical gift. And this has been so fun. Like, Vaughn, it's been so fun to have this discussion with you today. Thank you for being on.
Maya.
Yes, it's been wonderful. If anyone wants to hear Vaughn and I discuss any other spiritual topics, please just type them anywhere in the comments below. We would love to have another spiritually inspired conversation for all of you. And yes, Vaughn and I are wishing you a very amazing day. If you're listening to this when it goes live, happy Thanksgiving. It'll be on just before the holiday. And we're just hoping that all of you are able to increase your connection to the spirit world and the part of you that is so much greater than this kind of small self that we often experience ourselves as. So thank you all so much for being here. Many blessings to all of you listening out there. Namaste and goodbye.
Goodbye, and thank you so much.